This week on ConversionCast, we're going to be talking about content lessons that we as marketers can all learn from podcasting. We're going to talk about Google's newest feature addition to the analytics platform, some troubles with influencer marketing, and the virtues and drawbacks of social selling. We're going to be talking about all that and more on today's episode of ConversionCast. Hello and welcome to ConversionCast, brought to you by the team at Leadpages and Drip. We're excited to be with you today for another exciting episode. Today I am joined, as always, by my esteemed colleagues and friends.
Hey, Ryan.
Hello.
Howdy.
We've got a newbie in the room. Jennifer, hello.
I know. Hi.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
I'm
thanks
excited.
for being here. Josh and Anna, how are you guys today?
Rockin'.
Good. Awesome. Glad to hear it. We're going to kick things off right away today with This Week in Marketing News. Anna, I'm excited to hear what you got to talk about. What struck you this week?
So, as always, I'm trolling the interwebs. Do people say that, interwebs?
Yeah, of course.
And there was this one that caught my eye, this article that says, why current influencer marketing doesn't work. And whenever someone tells me something doesn't work, I'm like, really? Does it really not work?
Yeah.
But they actually make a pretty good case for it. So first, we have to talk about what is influencer marketing. Influencer marketing is the action of promoting and selling products or services through people, influencers, who have the capacity to affect the character of a brand. And so you see things like Kendall Jenner, who promoted Fyre Fest for Ja Rule. I don't know if anybody heard about that.
Yep.
Problematic. We'll talk about it in a second. Pepsi and Kendall Jenner's really been striking out with influencer marketing.
She'll promote anything.
Yeah. Love her to death, but you know, Pepsi and Kendall did that piece that was pulled entirely. It was just kind of insensitive.
The one about the seeing all the different violence out there and the protests.
Right, that
and
Pepsi's going to be the
will
cure
solve it all.
to
Yeah.
police
Yeah.
Giving a
violence
Pepsi to a police
or
officer.
conflict in the streets or whatever it might be. And it's just like, this is very strange why you're doing this, Pepsi. I don't understand.
Tone deaf, yeah.
And so the article talks about that there's actually a number of reasons why this doesn't work. Those are the classic examples. And the reasons why you should not use them, there's numerous. What's the alternative? They mention that leveraging the success of happy customers is a really good way of going, an alternative to an influencer, because it's more authentic. You're talking to people who actually are using your product, people who have an audience themselves. Everyone has an audience. So how do you enable those people to influence their audience, right?
Sure.
And so the article, I think, was well done. I don't know if influencer marketing is truly dead or not. I think in all truthfulness, have been influenced by influencer marketing.
Yeah, sure.
But I do think that there is a more savvy approach and a more impactful approach to influencer marketing. And I think the article does a good job of laying that out.
Awesome. Very cool. What was the publication for that?
That is from markgrowth.com.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Mr. Bratton.
Awesome. So, if you've ever been tired of pouring through your Google Analytics dashboards looking for what you're trying to find, now you can just ask Google Analytics. Yes, Ask Analytics Intelligence is a brand new feature that's rolling out over the next couple weeks, and it will allow you to ask any sort of questions. They'll give you answers in the forms of a form, a chart, a table, a metric. It works on desktop, tablet, and mobile, and you can type or speak your questions to Google Analytics, and it's supposed to surface these insights. And so if you've ever wondered about how many conversions you're getting on your website, where your conversions are coming from, now you can just ask Google Analytics and it will tell you. I think it's going to be a huge game changer because in the world of business intelligence, reporting and getting the right data, that's always been a challenge. And in the last couple of years, data discovery, the ability to quickly surface things that are in there without having to go through a specialist has become really hot. So the fact that Google Analytics is branching out into data discovery and surfacing tools like this is really cool.
Yeah. I have to clarify, am I talking to a person or a robot or an algorithm or?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you said.
Do you know though, what is the?
Oh, I thought you were talking to me.
No, not at all.
It's machine learning. I mean,
it
there's
is.
definitely not a person on the other end of that. Google doesn't invest in people for that. Type of
I
capacity.
imagine that was the case.
It's all machine learned. Yep.
Very cool.
It looked really neat.
You've tried it.
I have not tried it because it's rolling out over the next 2 weeks. I do not have access to it in any of the accounts that I have access to.
Well,
So
hopefully you can provide an update.
be very soon, hopefully.
Yeah, we should.
Yep.
We'll bring it back up for sure. Cool. Awesome. Jennifer.
My turn.
Your turn.
So, podcasts. Are you guys listening to them? Do you have your favorite?
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am.
100%.
Yeah, and I found myself recently watching or listening to podcasts just, this year. And so this article by Jason Demir is on why podcasts are so popular and the content lessons that we can learn from them really intrigued me on exactly like, why do I like listening to podcasts all of a sudden? And so let's first talk about like, why podcasts? Why now? Why are they trending? And this article talks about how we've moved away from like mindlessly scrolling. So it's even harder on screens to capture people's attentions because everybody is on there. So now we're just mindlessly scrolling. With a podcast, it actually, you hear somebody's voice. So it generates that genuine human connection. And it's a new alternative. You don't have to use data to listen to it in the car. You can download it. It's easily accessible. And it costs, pretty low, or it's a low-cost alternative to creating a video or show. And so that's why we're seeing a shift to podcasts. Now, in regards to the trends that we're seeing, I think this is pretty much within any digital marketing space. And so the lessons that we can learn are that customer preferences are always changing.
Sure.
So we go from radio, we go from TV, we go to social, and our phones now, mobile. Now we're just going back kind of into that radio, but on demand.
Yeah.
With what you're interested in.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting. And one thing they mentioned is it can become dangerous now to invest heavily in one specific medium. So if you're putting all of your eggs into Facebook and your social, well, what happens when everybody decides to jump ship one day and say, you know what, we want to watch TV again?
Yeah.
You got to look at your content strategy as a portfolio.
Exactly. And then the last thing that they mention is the cost and the value. So creating value doesn't have to cost a ton.
Sure.
And specifically, there's a quote. It says, it's possible to create targeted, interesting content that achieves significant visibility on even a thin content budget. And I think that's something that as marketers, we all need to kind of look at, and it's not about the dollar signs that we're throwing in. Sometimes more dollar signs can help, but it's really about whether or not our content is speaking to people and that it really resonates with them.
Yeah, I think if those dollars end up, going into better quality content or innovations in how content is being delivered, then it might work.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
great.
Cool.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, these days the microphone on your iPhone is just as good as, a lot of audio out there when it comes to podcasts.
Right.
Same with the video and the pictures that we can take, etc. So
I
that's
love
a really
that they
cool
pointed
idea.
out that the medium is so focused, because if we're driving in our cars, we're not checking other stuff. We're just listening to that podcast, And I think that a lot of advertisers are struggling with attention, and it's really hard to have an audience that's keyed in and clued in. And the cool thing is it's not just focused, but it's also extremely niched. Podcasts come in pretty much every single flavor you could imagine. And so if you have an audience you're trying to reach, there is a podcast that's already talking to them, which is kind of cool.
Awesome. Thank you all very much for your brains. That's This Week in Marketing News. We'll be back in just a moment with this week's roundtable where we talk about social selling. We'll be right back. This episode of ConversionCast is brought to you by Converted, the nation's premier marketing conference from the team at Leadpages and Drip. Join us for 2 days of networking, fun, and education. You'll learn proven conversion marketing campaigns and see presentations from 15 experts, including our keynote speaker, film director, and podcaster Kevin Smith. We hope you'll join us at Converted this October 17th and 18th in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Tickets are on sale now at converted.com. We are back. You just saw an ad for our upcoming Converted conference brought to you by the Leadpages and Drip teams. Kevin Smith, who's excited.
I'm super excited.
Yeah.
So excited.
Yeah.
Was everyone there last year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Honestly, some of the most valuable things that I got from the conference were, the onstage stuff was amazing.
Yeah.
But there was, and I was taking a ton of notes the whole time. But there were a lot of conversations I had in the hallway that changed the way I look at specific things in marketing automation, pieces of the marketing stack that I hadn't thought about because I hadn't just been focusing on them in the last few months, but these people had. And it's surprising because it's a community of experts, and if you open yourself up to that, you can get a lot out of it.
Yeah, I think my favorite part was just getting to bond with some of the customers that we talk to and see and interact with in our Facebook community and all of our other channels all the time. And then they're there, and it was fantastic. 500 people just talking about conversion. I can't wait.
Yeah.
Also, Minneapolis is awesome.
Yeah,
Yes.
especially in October. It's beautiful.
Absolutely. It's going to be a beautiful time. We hope to see you there. We're going to transition now to this week's roundtable discussion with a topic that we've gotten some questions on social about that we wanted to bring to the experts that we have in the room today. We're going to talk about social selling, and I want to ask, what do we mean by it? Who can do it, and how can we do it gracefully? Social selling is kind of a buzzword. I feel like it ends up in a lot of article headlines. Can anyone demystify social selling for me? Does anyone have a good take on what that is or how that works?
So I'm going to be really honest.
Yeah.
Until a few days ago, I'd never heard the term.
Okay.
And I'm really intrigued by it
Yeah.
because, I think a lot of us have had backgrounds in sales in some way, shape, or form. And we've been taught this methodology of sales that is becoming more and more outdated.
Yeah.
And so when someone says social selling, it's an interesting hybrid of these different mediums you have access to as a salesperson, places where you should be your most authentic self online. How do you leverage that in the name of sales in a way that's really good for your prospects?
Totally. Do you guys have, I guess to your point there, Anna, is there a difference between social and email? I mean, we talk a lot about email marketing, and what is there a tone difference there? Is there a content difference there? Is it both?
I think the tactics are different. I mean, a good example of social selling that I did, just super basic principles. So a couple years ago, I was doing some affiliate marketing.
Yep.
And I was doing affiliate marketing for Squarespace. And I would just set up a Google alert for Squarespace, anything, right? And I had probably 50 or so articles that all just explained something about the brand.
Sure.
And then whenever I saw somebody on social, whether it was Twitter or Quora or something, and they're like, hey, does anybody know does Squarespace do this or that? I was on that like instantly.
Right.
I would send them a link to my article, and then they'd be cookied, and they clicked on my links, and then I would get the sale.
Sure.
I was pretty good at it too. They actually shut me down because I was getting too many sales. But
Nice.
But yeah, I think that's a perfect example of where instead of I think some people think of social sales as let me just link my pricing page in my tweets constantly. But if you're looking at it as there are people out there asking the social web about their purchase choices and decisions that are upcoming,
Yeah.
and if you can be there and provide value, then I think you can just dominate it like you would any other channel.
Yeah.
I think it too depends on what channel you are selling on. Because for example, good social selling, you don't even realize that you're being sold to. And so this has actually happened to me multiple times where on Instagram, they have this new feature where influencers can link to a product page or to a specific product, and you
just
swipe
started
up,
seeing this, yeah.
and now you're directly in that page after they've explained it over an Instagram, story that takes 10 seconds.
Sure.
So you either can write things down on social, like Facebook, Quora, or now you have the opportunity to sell it via a 10-second video on Snapchat, on Instagram, on Facebook Live even. So it also really depends on which medium you're using and making the most out of it. Instagram gives you one link in your profile. How are you going to use it? If you're using video, how are you getting them to that sales page?
That's smart.
Another thing that popped out at me in this article is that there's an element of this that has to do with the trust that you've built in your own personal presentation online. And so anyone who's involved in the sales conversation now has an opportunity to enter this much earlier by building a reputation that, one, promotes their product or their service, but holistically establishes themselves as an expert in the space, which allows you to start much more organic conversations and to be seen as a trusted advisor. And I think this is something that we've come to over and over again. It's just reformatted into the social sphere.
Yeah.
So when they talk about building a brand, it's not just that your presence on social is building into the brand of your product, but you're also building your own personal brand as a salesperson where someone will come to you and expect to receive information that's going to help them.
Yeah, absolutely. The article that Anna is referring to is by Coca Sexton on CMS Wire. It's called "When I Say Social Selling, What I Mean Is Providing Value," which is something that we tossed around a little bit before today's episode. To your point about building trust, Anna, and Jennifer, to your point about what channels you're on, is social selling something anyone can do? I mean, I think, like, to your point too, Josh, about Squarespace, you were selling, but you also had a bit of a reputation. You had content about Squarespace. You had content and resources that you were able to provide people.
That's all I had was content, though, and
Sure.
I think that's a huge. It's not a huge barrier to entry, is I guess what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
And I think, and it's actually really profound, because if nobody's talking about something on the internet and somebody has a question and they search for it, the first person that gives them something that's like researched and helpful, that person is an expert. I went to a conference during these Squarespace blogging days. Went to a conference and I got there and somebody's like, "Are you Josh Broughton?" I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "I love your Squarespace blog." And I'm like, "Who is this guy?"
Nice.
And it was kind of a weird thing, but that was like the first time that I had seen that if there's no expert and you're the only one talking about it, then you are the expert, and people quickly see you as that as well.
Yeah, definitely. That's really cool.
One other thing about the social selling piece too is I think the amount of data that's out there right now to actually figure out like what people care about.
Sure.
There's just so much stuff. There's tools like BuzzSumo that will tell you like what people are interested in on social.
Right.
There's tools like Brand. I think it's Brand Watch or Brand. Yeah, it's Brand Watch that allows you to take a look at everything that people like that are following certain things and what they are saying about stuff. And then there's even like online market research tools like AYTM. They put a study out the other day talking about Heinz ketchup and how many people like preferred Heinz to Hunt's and like how that played into how they should be having conversations and things like that. So
really neat.
The data aspect of social can be really compelling for sales too.
Yeah, for sure. One more thing I want to ask about before we wrap this off. I feel like I have seen people be resistant to being sold to on social media. I feel like oftentimes we look at social as a place that people go for fun and cat videos and to play with your friends and look at pictures and stuff like that. And that people sometimes see social as being sold to on social as blunt force. Can you guys put that myth to bed at all? Or
the only time that people don't like being sold to is when it was not done well.
Sure.
And so honestly, like you can sell to people socially, but you're not going to come out at them and say, "Oh, you're talking about Pipe Drive. Here's a link to my pricing page." That's not. I don't believe that's what the concept is really talking about.
Yeah.
I think
It's
too.
a continuation of the sales pipeline where someone is a cold to lukewarm lead at best in most situations in a social channel. And that's where you engage authentically and, when appropriate, pass them off through whatever triggers you have that are available to you into the pipeline. Maybe it's your actual CRM.
Yeah.
I think social selling can be great when you are doing it so that it provides value to your end customer.
Sure.
I love personally being socially sold because I find products that I'd never realized that I wanted, and they like kind of fit into my lifestyle,
Isn't it
and
funny
it
how they-
supplements like my closet or my kitchen, and but those are things that I was already interested in. Like nobody's trying to sell me a lawnmower. I don't own a home.
Sure.
That's silly for you to market me on social media if that's not your market. So I think it can be done well. It can be valuable when you make it valuable to your market, your specific niche.
Awesome. Very well said. Thank you all. Great insights. Good stuff. And thanks to you. We're going to take one more quick break. We'll be back in just a second here. We're going to be talking about a couple of questions that came in from our social channels over the past week and getting some answers once again from these great minds to my right. We'll be right back. Would you like to be featured on ConversionCast? Leave us a short voicemail at 612-568-8732 with your name, the name of your business, and your very best marketing tip. You could be featured on an upcoming episode of ConversionCast just like this. So give us a call and share your marketing expertise with us. We can't wait to hear from you. We're back with our social Q&A. Our social media manager, Sarah Now Middleton, congratulations to Sarah, has been pulling some questions for us that came in from our prospects and some of our customers who just want to know some great marketing advice. So I want to start off with one that came in on Facebook from Colin Haas. Colin wants to know, what are some best practices for A/B testing my calls to action if readers are coming to my site, reading my content, but not taking action? It seems like not a good problem to have, but it seems like the bulk of things, if you got people on your site reading your content, that's a great start.
Half the battle.
Half the battle, yeah, absolutely.
I guess my first question is, how does he know that they're reading the content? Because I mean, that's one thing to measure, but at the minimum, the problem is that they're not taking action, right?
And that's what you want them to do. You don't want them
exactly.
just to come and read every week and leave.
Sure. Any A/B testing strategies for that? Any ideas for things to try versus what you think? I mean, obviously we don't have a ton of context around what Colin's doing right now.
Right.
But
I think one of the first things that I would suggest, because most people don't have enough volume to run successful A/B tests on very individual things, and so
True. The microscopic stuff is not the stuff you should be testing.
totally like
You just
home,
don't.
like home pages and pricing
IBM
pages
has enough
and
traffic
stuff.
to do
Yes,
that.
they can do
Most
that.
other folks don't.
Yeah. So, but what I do think is like, so I look at it as like how you can go into high traffic places like with a lever and try and like pull the leads out of those high traffic places. So what I would usually do is go into my Google Analytics and I would see like where's the most of my traffic coming in, and then I would look at those specific pages and try and see, well, do I need to create different lead generation opportunities on those high traffic places? And so, for example, like I have a blog I work on with my niece. It's about koi fish. And the other day we were looking, and we have a web page that gets a ton of traffic for koi breeding. It's like one of our best trafficked articles. Cool. And we don't get a lot of leads from that page. And so I asked my niece, I was like, will you make a guide, a little PDF on how, the ins and outs of breeding koi fish? And she said, sure. And so that's something that, is an easy content upgrade for that page. People are already enjoying the traffic, or the traffic's already there. So why not just add something that's super specific to that page that has a lot of value to it, right? So, in short, take those high traffic pages and try to create something that 10x is the value of whatever it is they came to that page to see in the first place.
definitely. I like that.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I like that idea a lot. And one of the things that actually crossed my mind when I was reading this question is, if you're getting that traffic but people aren't clicking, an exit intent pop-up or lead box would be a really great option for something like this, where if from time on page people are reading your content right as they're about to go, give them the opportunity. Don't make them click at all. Give them a pop-up that says, hey, before you go, get my guide about koi fish or whatever it might be.
And you said an on-exit pop-up, right? Not like an on-landing pop-up?
I mean, it could be that too, I guess, but I was just thinking, if you want to give them the full opportunity to read as much, if you know they're going to be there for a long time, let them do that, and right before they go, grab them. That way that you don't have to fight for the click or change your button copy or the color of your button. Some of those things, like you said, are kind of the microscopics that we can get in the weeds with. So
another couple things, like if you're really looking to test calls to action, one thing that I would always do is just try and complete the sentence, I want to blank, and have that be your button copy. Sure. So the number one mistake that I see people use is the word submit, right? So nobody ever says I want to submit.
I mean, unless you're in specific context.
Right. I mean, I guess I
submit my tax lead.
Yes. Submit for a refund or
there you go.
a rebate.
Right.
But yeah, so like if you have an ebook or something, it's like, I want to get the free ebook, right? Like get my free ebook. That's if your button copy isn't created with that type of mentality in mind, that's a good place to start testing.
Yeah, definitely.
One thing I just wanted to highlight is the importance of having traffic. If you have a traffic problem, you're not going to be able to test, just like Josh said. And so if you can solve for that and get at least one opt-in, then we're talking.
Yeah.
Then you can start saying, well, if I move this higher on the page, or if I make it a lot bigger, how does that affect this?
Right.
But at minimum, make sure you have traffic on that page. Otherwise, you're going to be wasting your time.
Sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Awesome. Great stuff. We're going to move now to another question that came in off of social. I believe this is from Facebook as well. Tim Berman wants to know, how do I build my automation so that it enriches my contact database with more information about them, such as social profiles, household income, and other demographic data? I don't want to put you on the spot, Jennifer, but I know that you have some experience in this world.
Yes.
People want more than an email address, right? I mean, an email address is good. It's a great place to start, but we're seeing more and more with hyper-personalization and those things that we need more data points than just your Gmail. How can Tim and people like Tim get that information?
Well, the first thing is, obviously you need to get an email address, because you can't really do anything beyond that. So if you have an email address, you have an N.
Yep.
And with that N, the more that you can build trust with that specific email address, the more willing they are to share that information.
Sure.
And what you would do with that automation then is take what you already know. If it's just an email address, maybe it's as simple as, sending them an email that says, what are you interested in, or what are you trying to do, and letting them self-identify themselves.
Sure.
None of this guessing stuff. In Drip specifically, we use trigger links in our onboarding process to know the intention of why you're trying out Drip.
Yeah.
You can use that in your own business. So you could say, welcome to my list. These are the products that we offer. This is, the stuff that I blog about. What specifically are you interested in hearing? And by selecting that, it actually records these things as custom fields. And so I think the first thing that you need to do is have a starting place, which is to get that email address, build trust, and start surveying them. Don't send them a full blown out 10-page survey, but
Right.
start with little things. So, email about this. What do you think about it? What are your interests? Maybe send them to landing pages that that they're interested in, and
Right.
include a few more form fields on that one.
Yep.
So I think it's more so just build the trust first, and don't be afraid to ask at the right time. Once
Yeah.
you do have that trust.
That's
I
great.
think Jennifer makes a really great point. With those trigger links that you're mentioning, if you send somebody an email and you're saying which of the 5 of these things are you struggling with the most right now, and they click on one of those things, and you can update your database with that thing, then you've asked. Assuming you're asking an important question to your customer, you've just created a major fulcrum for all of your marketing, right? So I mean, those little kind of initial ones, click on one of these links to let us know more about you, is awesome. I think there's a couple other tactics that I've been seeing that are
Full contact.
what's that?
Full contact.
Yeah, I was going to say data
Clearbit.
enrichment, full contact, and we use Clearbit. And so for people that don't know what that is, you get an email address, you hit this service called Clearbit through an API, they pull back 100+ fields based on the domain from the email address.
Wow.
That's
so
really cool.
company size, domain, what technologies they're using, a
Wow.
bunch of stuff.
Really helps for qualification.
Totally.
But I don't want to ignore the fact that what Jennifer's suggesting is stuff that you could never get through something like Clearbit,
Right,
which
yeah.
is, I think it's kind of a two-sided approach here,
Yeah,
where
you want
both are
proactive and
really
reactive.
critical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think and then the other thing that I see people using right now that is really awesome is surveys. Right,
Yeah.
the quizzes and the surveys.
Right.
Interact is a fun tool that we've been experimenting with lately.
Yep,
And if
yep.
you turn questions or fields that you want to know about people into a quiz, can we guess? Your
The BuzzFeed quiz.
Yeah,
and
what
now
kind
they
of
know what you want.
Yeah, I'm.
Which Disney princess are you?
I'm Jasmine. I know that. I don't know why I know that, but I'm Jasmine.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I see it. I can see it.
Well,
I heard they had some trouble casting for that role in the new.
did they?
Yeah, so maybe you just
That's
do
a
it.
whole other podcast.
Let's get Josh in that role.
Yeah.
Thank you all for your brains again on this stuff, and thank you all for submitting your questions. If you want to submit a question and potentially be featured on ConversionCast, you can hit us up on any of our social media for Drip or Leadpages. We'd be happy to take your questions and see what wisdom we can put into them. With the close of that also closes this week's episode of ConversionCast. Thank you so much for joining us wherever you are. Give us a follow, a like, a comment. This show is made for marketers, by marketers, just for you, and we want to make it as good as we can for you. So please do let us know what you're liking and what you're not, and we'll do our best to make it the best it can be for you. With that, thank you all for your time today. Jennifer,
Thank you for
Did you have
having
fun?
me. This was so much fun.
will you come back?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. And thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next week.